All right, today we're going to learn about reciprocal properties, quotient properties, and Pythagorean properties. Reciprocal properties are these 6 properties. Secant of x is 1 over cosine. Cosecant of x is 1 over sine. Cotangent of x is 1 over tangent. Cosine of x is 1 over secant of x. Sine of x equals 1 over cosecant of x. Then finally, tangent of x equals 1 over cotangent of x. Now, you guys have known these properties. I think you just haven't known that they're called reciprocal properties. So if we ever ask for a reciprocal property for cosecant, you'll just say cosecant is 1 over sine of x. All right, since we're getting into proofs, this is one proof we'll start out with. Sine of x over cosine of x, we want to prove that that equals tangent of x. So we start saying sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. All right, and now this means we're dividing these two fractions, so that's opposite over hypotenuse divided by adjacent over hypotenuse. Now everybody knows that when we divide fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. Opposite over hypotenuse times hypotenuse over adjacent. Now what cancels out? Hopefully everybody sees that that's the hypotenuse. So now we just multiply across, and so that's opposite over adjacent, which is equal to tangent. So in our proof, we started with the left-hand side, worked through until we got to the right-hand side. Now we don't need reasons for each step along the way like we needed in geometry. Here, it's pretty obvious how we go from one step to the next to get to the right-hand side. Now our two quotient properties are tangent of x equals sine of x over cosine of x, and cotangent of x equals cosine of x over sine of x. We could prove cotangent the same way, but we won't today. All right, without your calculator, I want you guys to find sine squared 60 plus cosine squared 60. Now to do that, what we do is we know 60 degrees is up here, and the opposite of 60 is root 3. The hypotenuse is 2. This side is 1. So the sine of 60 is root 3 over 2. And now we need to square that. Cosine is going to be 1 over 2. Now we'll square that. Square root of 3 squared is 3. 2 squared is 4. 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4. So 3/4 plus 1/4 is 4/4, which equals 1. All right. Sine squared 31 and cosine squared 31. So make sure your calculator's in degree mode, and if we find the sine of 31, that is 0.515, and then when we square it, we'll get 0.265. Now if we do the same thing with cosine of 31, square that, you should get 0.735. Now when we add these up, we get 1. So what do you think will happen if whenever we take a sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta? Hopefully you notice they'll always equal 1. Now if we want to show this using the unit circle, this is another way of saying this is show this algebraically, or geometrically. This is how we can show this geometrically. All right, so on the unit circle, hopefully everybody knows that the hypotenuse is going to equal 1. Now, we talked about this before, that on the unit circle, the x value represents cosine, the y value represents sine. So how can we prove this using that? Well, we know this is a 90-degree angle, so we can say sine squared x plus this cosine squared is going to equal 1 squared. And we know 1 squared is just 1, so we can just write 1. So that's a way we can show this geometrically using the unit circle. All right, now you can write down these Pythagorean properties. We're going to prove the second two, or show you how we get the second two. Eventually, you'll have to memorize all three of these. All right, to show where they come from, if you take that one that we just learned, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1, and divide each segment by sine squared. Sine squared divided by sine squared is 1. Cosine squared divided by sine squared is going to be cosine over sine is cotangent. Oops. And then 1 over sine squared is cosecant squared. So this is one of those Pythagorean properties that you just wrote down. To get the other Pythagorean property, now we divide by cosine squared. Now if we do that, sine over cosine, we decided it was tangent. Cosine over cosine is 1. Ooh, I shouldn't. 1 over cosine squared is secant squared. So this is my other Pythagorean property. So now, using our first Pythagorean property, we were able to get these other two properties. All right. So sometimes we'll start with this thing on the bottom, and we want to figure out how we can prove that that's true. So what we want to do is we want to find the identity that matches that and manipulate it to make it look like this. The first thing I would do is subtract 1 from both sides. So cotangent squared x equals cosecant squared x minus 1. Now I have to subtract cosecant squared x. So cotangent squared x minus cosecant squared x is going to equal -1. So now we have that match what we want, so we're done. Now which of the following is equal to cosine squared x? Now we know sine squared x plus cosine squared x is equal to 1. What can I do to this to make it equal just to cosine squared x? Well, we can subtract sine squared x from both sides. So we have cosine squared x equals 1 minus sine squared x. So 1 minus sine squared x is the correct answer. Now let's do the same thing for cotangent squared x. Now we have to think about which equation uses cotangent squared x. Well, if we look back at this one, it's cotangent squared x plus 1 equals cosecant squared x. So we have cotangent squared x plus 1 equals cosecant squared x. So to solve for cotangent, we just have to subtract 1 from both sides. So cotangent squared x is equal to cosecant squared x minus 1. So that's D. All right, and this is your homework to work on for the rest of the period. Good luck.